Welcome, everybody, back to Veil of Sound. This is the moment that a lot of us have been waiting for. January 1st, New Year. And we always like to start the year with a bang. And if you look at the people that we had on January 1st, I think this man here fits right in. So, Johannes Persson from Cult of Luna, thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you for letting me be a part of this bunch of list of very creative people. I have no idea who you're talking about, but
Aaron Turner, Jacob Bannon, Noah Edwardson. So I think you fit that list.
Yeah, the very talented people. I'm not sure if I fit into that category, but yeah.
Don't go the humble way. Just accept it. Johannes, as always, we like to talk about different topics, and I think it's a very good moment because Cult of Luna is probably writing, I hope at least, but there is no new record out, so we can talk about a bigger topic. And the both of us thought about talking about creativity and influences and all of that. And when I looked at influences and when I just saw your shirt, a Dead Guy shirt, like it a lot.
Yeah.
You have said that, influences are hard to find, but would you say that there are certain bands, certain acts that really influenced you?
Oh yeah, of course. Both what you say, both intentional and it's hard to say because at some point in your creative life, look, okay, let's backtrack even further. When I learned how to write music, and I guess this is the story of most people, is that you learn by copying.
Yeah.
And I don't know how far back you want to go, but there were certain bands that had a huge influence on me when it comes to actual writing. I mean, I started playing the guitar pretty late. My mom put me in guitar lessons when I was 12, acoustic guitar. I got sick of it after like a couple of months, like, oh, fuck this. And then I got into punk music, and I had this really very nice friend that taught me how to play the guitar. And when and the reason why I got interested in the instrument was because it was fairly easy. I mean, I had to put some effort in to learn how to play the songs that I liked. And then, I mean, as any teenager, you're all over the place when it comes to listening to music and all that. And then all of a sudden, like, you stopped just playing covers and started trying to write your own stuff. And of course, and I was 14, 15 when I started playing the guitar. And then when I was, high school, I kind of locked myself in for 2 years, just listening to bands I liked and like, okay, I like this song. Why do I like it? What makes it work? And I started to, and this was, I mean, I don't think you're gonna hear a lot of influence in my style of music now, but bands like, Unbroken was probably one of the most influential bands for me when I started not playing, old school hardcore, and when I got into this kind of alternative punk / hardcore scene that was just started off from the US, and I have no idea where I found out about these bands. I probably just ordered them from some mail order thingy in the US. Bands like Botch, Kolesh have had a huge impact on like more creatively than like musically, just learning how they structure songs. So if I like the song, I was like, okay, they have this part A, B, C, C, D. Like, I was having all these kind of figuring out templates how to write music. And then I wrote, like, okay, if part A is in this intensity and part B have this intensity, like ups and like I've learned the structure of writing, like just the basics of it. And I mean, if you listen to, for example, Cult Luna's first demo, you can definitely hear influence from those bands in there.
Mhm.
And then other people got in, like, if we're gonna have Cult Luna as an example, um, other people's creativity got um, involved into the whole thing. Yeah, and another thing I need to address is that I played in different kinds of bands before, and just playing with other guitarists taught me how to do things differently, like how to color different chords. No, like I'm myself, like now I know some uh, theory, music theory, but I never used it. I'm never. I think my strength. I keep telling people this is that my strength. I have true strength is that I've learned how to deal with that. I'm not a good guitar player. I've written stupid riffs, and I've been able to find people. I've been like my biggest talent is to find very talented people to work with, so I can hide behind and probably learn a lot from other people, which I have. Like there's certain musicians that I've played with at the start that I don't play with anymore that probably have had a bigger impact on my writing than they know, because they kind of put me in one, like a small push at the start might end you up very, very differently in the long run. Um, yeah, but I think one strength with Culture is that there's a lot of very, very talented people in the band, and at the start, as with any band, we just did stuff. It was just like we had no idea what we were going to do, and we just wrote and wrote and wrote and just did stuff. And I think nobody would disagree with me is that um, at one, and there's different reasons behind this, but when we started to find our own sound was probably as our third record, Salvation. I mean, yeah, you could argue that we had some kind of progression with the two first albums, but that was more of a conscious decision that, like, fuck everything, let's just do our thing now. And Somewhere Along the Highway was probably one of the most organic written record ever. And after that, and I mean, we're 3, 4 records in, which is most bands' career. We started to find something that I still think that we are progressing with musically, and where we're heading after. I I have I have no idea. It's getting hard. Like, look, it's getting harder and harder for every year to write new music. That's for sure. And I don't understand how bands that've been going on for like longer than we have still can do it. Uh, because I mean, it would be it would be very simple to rewrite old records. Um, but I don't want to I don't want to get stuck. I want to feel like we're progressing in some way. If it's bad or good, that's another thing. But I don't want to just write songs. If you know what I mean, I
Yeah.
want mean something. I want them to. I want us to feel um, that we're doing something new, and that's why, for example, very often now, for the last, well, I would say last 15 years, we basically have said, okay, at this point, we're going to have a record. So we better start writing and be done with it at that point. But this time, I want to, like, now we don't have any pressure from anyone. Now I want to go the other way around. I want to have a record done, and then we decide when to record. And there's different pros and cons with that. One, well, downside to it is that I strongly believe that one of the biggest tools any creative person can have um, is the deadline,
Mm-hmm.
because you can rewrite and redo stuff like forever. And at
Mm-hmm.
some point, where you need to say, okay, this is it. This is what's gonna be. Let's move on. So that's one thing that I'm afraid of, and which I know have held me back now for a last, well, at least a year. That like I was very well stubbornly decisive. Like I'm not gonna rush anything this time. Like it have to be um it have to take its time now. I'm in a point in life where I don't want to rush anything, and I've noticed that it kind of kept me back, because I know that it kept my writing back for sure, because I haven't, like, if I don't have a deadline or any point where things need to get done, I don't do anything. For example, we I don't think I can say what it is, but we had this project about, oh, actually, 1 year ago. We wrote a small piece of music for a thing, and it had a deadline, and nothing happened. Nobody did anything. Like a month before that, okay, fuck, this needs to be done now. So I went down to our studio and just started writing, and lo and behold, a song came out just like in 2 days. So that's the positive thing about having a deadline. It forces you to do stuff. Um, so
But that feeds into one of my thoughts when we were talking about inspiration, creativity, and all of that. The element of time. You've said it. Like having a timeline is a good thing for you. So would you say that because a lot of people always talk about creativity stemming from spontaneity, it must be coming from the spot. It must jump at you in a certain moment. Would you say that creativity can be planned?
I think honestly, I think creativity needs to be forced.
I wouldn't. I didn't want to ask that. That was the word that I was
Yeah,
having in my head. So you think it can be forced?
it needs to be. Not in the sense that, I mean, put a gun to my, oh, very put a gun to my head and not write anything. But no, but
Okay.
I mean, you need to give it time, and you
Yeah.
need to grind. That's the thing. And I think it all depends on where you are in your creative I don't know,
Point in
process.
life.
Yeah, well, point in life and where you are. If you're a beginner, it's very
Hmm.
simple. You have to be spontaneous and just do stuff. But when you're in my point in life, and especially when life don't give you that privilege of just, you know, that I can do anything whenever I want, I need to force myself to be creative. I mean, it doesn't really matter if it's writing music or writing. If I'm gonna write, that's the thing when you write stories, for example. Yeah, an idea might be popping up in your head, but in order for the idea to become something, you
Hmm.
need to sit down and write, and it needs to suck the first. It's going to suck, and then you go back and rewrite. It's a very unorganic process. It needs to be written down. It needs to be structured, especially when we talk about stories and making storylines and making a story structure. It's a very technical process. And I would say you can translate that into music too. You need to be sitting down. I used to. I used to say that it, and I thought it would be that for my entire life. But I used to say like like my brain works that like ideas are constantly coming, and but I need to sit down with a guitar in order to like pick them
Mm.
from the assembly line and pick them. And I can tell you, this phone is filled with a lot of ideas. Out of 99.5% is just trash.
Mm.
But not only, I just listened through the last year's ideas, and there's so many ideas that I feel like, okay, this could potentially be so. So I need to pick one out and work on that. But yeah, so it's an anxiety process that is not very pleasant. It takes a long time before you get to the fun part of,
Mm.
like playing it with your friends. So
Mm.
it, yeah, it's hard.
I also thought about the time element when, for example, thinking about designs like the design for the long road north, because I think, putting something like that together, thinking of all the components, all the levels, that also takes some time, doesn't it?
What are we talking about now?
The cover, for example, for the
Oh yeah,
long road north, like to put it all together, all the levels, all the elements, that takes some time.
yeah, I guess so. I'm not like the person that does that. Eric, that used to be in the band for many years. He was one of the, yeah, it was one of the like original members. He's not playing with now, but he does all the artwork. So I guess you have to ask him. Um, but every cover comes from a long discussion.
Hmm.
And like, to be quite honest, I think that particular artwork didn't take as much time and effort than others, because we had a pretty long discussion about it even before we had it recorded. Like A Dawn to Fear, for example, was a way longer process with way more trial and errors and stuff like that. So, uh, I mean, as with all creative processes, sometimes things just fall into place. Like I said, like Somewhere Along the Highway, we wrote that in like 3 months, which is crazy now when we think about it. But at that point, we were a bunch of kids that didn't have any kids.
We'll come to that in a moment.
Yeah. So, um, yeah, I mean, it's different. But that particular cover, I mean, we had a good idea of what we wanted to do.
Hmm.
So, yeah.
You've just mentioned kids, and I don't want to talk about kids in general at the moment, but isn't creativity also always linked to, you've already said that, to the personal point in life? I mean, like, there is probably stuff that you wrote a few years, maybe even decades back, where you would now say, I wouldn't write that anymore, or I would write it very differently. Isn't like the experience factor also something very, very important?
Yeah, but it's not, but it just is.
Mhm.
I wouldn't say it's for good or for ill. It just is.
Mhm. Mhm.
Like any record that we would have done would have sounded differently now.
Mhm.
And I'm glad we didn't write. I hate when people go back and remix, rematch, blah 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 blah. Leave it. It is what it
Mhm.
is. You can't like. There's. I think it's like violating the the work in
Mhm.
a, like would I one thing that we get back to every now and then is like the first record we did. That was basically, long story short, but by coincidence, Duncan, this guy that had a small indie label in the UK, he asked us if we wanted to record a mini CD, which he did. It's like EP, 5-song EP.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, yeah, send some money, and we recorded all the songs we had. Sorry, it became an album. We had a very small budget. The guy that recorded it, he was I know slash think that he thought that we like overstayed our welcome because we spent way more time in the studio than we were allowed to, and we recorded everything on this like DAT tapes. And like a few weeks later, he asked me like, "Yeah, I have this DAT tapes. Do you want to buy them off of me, or should we just record over them?" And they cost like 200 euros, which was money we didn't have at the time. Like, yeah, screw it. The record is done. And I'm not really happy with the mix.
Mm-hmm.
And we would definitely have had released a remixed version of that album if we would had that tapes. And I'm happy. I'm not happy. Well, I am that we didn't do it, or that those original tapes are over recorded, or um yeah, but sometimes I going back to some songs that we wrote, I can think like, how the hell did a bunch of kids write these songs, and like lyrically, like these are pretty good. How did I write this? And it's almost like it's somebody else that have done it. Um, but yeah, I'm happy we kind of that you don't get to go back and redo stuff. I think would fuck up a lot of
Mm.
old songs. Um, yeah, it's better to leave it and just move forward.
I also think, and here your kids somewhere along the way come into play. Um, of course, being a creative person is always the result of a certain kind of upbringing, of a certain kind of youthhood, childhood, adolescence. Um, how much of that do you think plays into your songwriting or also into the other creative outlets?
You think with my upbringing?
Yeah.
Um,
I'll give you an example while you think about it. My mom listened to nothing but really, 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 really shitty German folk music. And my reaction to it is, if I listen to it, please give me a bucket.
yeah.
That is the result of my personal background.
Well, ironically, yeah, my mom didn't do much of creative work when it comes to anything that I do, at least. My dad, on the other hand, he was a big part of the Swedish folk music scene. He didn't play any. Well, we had an acoustic guitar, and one of my childhood traumas is him sitting in the sofa singing Beatles songs. Not very good, I should say.
Okay.
Worth mentioning is that my dad, he's kind of a Ringo Starr lookalike. Like if you watch, or if you see like old picture of him and Ringo, they were like same people. Um, yeah, so that and I hated the Swedish folk music that my dad used to like play in the stereo. Um, Now I can appreciate it in a different
Mhm.
way. And also, I would say some of it might have kind of made its way into what I do. That is not important. The important part is that music was a part of my life. Like my parents listened to a lot of, you know, their usual stuff. Dylan, Chris Rea, Springsteen, all these, uh, just basic rock. So I like, at least it was a part of it. I think the reason why I got into music in the first place was, friends.
Hmm.
I had this friend. You have a friend that have a big brother.
Yeah. And the
Yeah,
brick brother is always the one who listens to stuff.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
had this friend, and we used to spend our school breaks listening to, the 80s metal. Well, the 80s hair metal bands like, Mötley.
Europe.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Europe was huge. And the weird things that I become acquainted with Joey Tempest the last couple of years, which like 70-year-old me would be totally starstruck. But anyway, yeah, Europe, Mötley Crüe, Guns N' Roses, of course, Poison and Kiss, and all these bands, and Iron Maiden, of course, and it's kind of, it was, I don't know, I don't think it that have had a bigger impact on my interest in music more than what my parents did.
Yeah. And now, if your kids listen to music, is there stuff where you say like, okay, that's good, or where you're like, can we listen to nothing?
Look, as a parent, you need to understand, and especially when you grow up, is that, um, it, it, it- you will not approve of what your kid's listening to.
Most of the time, I would totally agree to that. Yes.
Um, and don't get into the business of telling, oh, well, back in my day.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not like, just let them do whatever they do.
Yeah.
Me, my daughter, uh, like, it doesn't matter what they do, as long as if they listen to music, I'm fine with it. I don't
Hmm.
like, I never felt so old as when I went to a record store, asked the kids, like, look, my daughter, she's into this Korean K-pop thing. I have no idea of what to buy her.
Hmm.
A suggestion. Like, I have no idea. I never felt that old. But we definitely. I think my daughter, she's a big Billie Eilish fan.
Could be
Uh,
worse.
yeah, it could be way worse.
Yeah.
There's some songs like, yeah, I'm into this. Everybody loves Lana Del Rey, of course, and my happy my daughter definitely got into it. My son, on the other hand, we really meet up where he actually have gotten into, he get into a few of the bands that I listen to, but he like, and I think this is thanks to TikTok. Um, he got into Weezer, which is a very good band if you're
The
going to.
first two records are impeccable.
Yeah, that's the two. The ones, like, there's a few good songs on the later records too, but that's the two records we listen to most, and it's a very good band if you want to learn how to play the guitar, and in Louis' case, play the drums.
Hmm.
So we went. We have this thing when we go to the local music store, and he plays like electronic drums,
Hmm.
and he he started playing that. Um, what's the song called? Do that, do that, do that, do. It's very simple. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. If you got, and that's how you get into music. You
Yeah.
simple stuff, and then things become progressively more challenging. So
Mhm.
that's what, it could be way worse. My
Yeah,
kids listen
definitely could.
to music that I actually can approve of, but that's the thing. Uh, I hope and think that the kind of commercial trash that's my from my point of view.
Yeah. We share that point of view.
Yeah. There's going to be, hopefully there's going to be a backlash to some dirtier kind of music, but it's not going to be anything that I approve of.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be something different. Like it's very simple. Oh yeah, after the 80s, you got like this whole grunge and
Yeah.
punk pop thingy coming back, and it's not going to be like that. It's
Yeah.
going to be something different. But I'm sure there's gonna be a backlash of all this polished pop music. But like I just have to face it. I am too old. Like too old. It sounds like a judge. It's
No, but
not.
that's the case. I mean, like,
I have
I
been
figure we're both born at the end of the 70s, right? So we're same generation. You got lost there. So you were lost there.
oh
Sorry. I guess we're both like the same generation, right? So late 70s. So we grew up listening to the same kind of stuff, right?
yeah,
And yeah, I totally agree with you. No, whatever comes later
yeah,
or whatever comes in a few years, it will never be something where you and I will be like, yeah, that's something that I totally dig.
yeah. Might be, but it's I also can. There's a few people in my circle of friends that kind of um that that kind of in symbolic or like a gesture, like everything new is better than before. Now, okay, yeah, I understand. You want to go against this dream of grumpy old man. Yeah, yeah, blah, 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 blah. It's not. It, it's different. It might not be better, but there's a lot of new great bands out there. A lot of new that do things a bit different. Like I mean, there's a tons of them, but like one band that I particularly enjoy is Trench, for example, that had like it's newer metal but punky, but and use different kind of electronics, which can suck in some senses, but they do it in a new and interesting way. So there's a lot of younger generation of kids that play metal or punk or whatever and do it in a very interesting new way. Um, so yeah, everything doesn't suck.
No, not everything. Would you also say that sometimes if you're in the right kind of community where there is a lot of stuff going on, that it can also support and push your own creativity? I mean, like when I think of you're from Umea,
Yeah.
I mean, like that town is a little famous for a few bands like Refused, Breach, Abhinanda, Meshuggah, and some others, right? I mean,
Well, to be
Breach. I know Breach is Lulea, but
yeah.
not that
No,
far away.
yeah,
But you know
but
what I mean, right? Can that also push your creativity?
yeah, not only that, there's a lot of bands that you probably don't know of.
Probably.
That are like bigger in Sweden. A few musicians that don't play in bands that like stems from this scene or scene. Like the more I think about the the culture that I like not grew up in, but my teenage years with some distance to it, I I understand that I didn't understand how special it was. Um, like like you said, there's a lot of successful bands coming from Umeå and from this. And I'm trying to figure out why that was. I think there's a lot of aspects to it. One aspect is that our scene, musically at least, was very supportive. If you listen to bands from like 94, every band sounded basically the same. Yep. Hello. Every band
Love it.
Yeah, sounded basically the same, and then everybody like spread out, got different influences
Yeah.
and played. And I know some like hardcore and punk scene can be very, very conservative. Well,
Yes.
yeah, uh, but that was not the case.
Mm.
And like, I don't like that's one aspect of it. That people got influenced from very different kinds of music and spread out on the musical spectrum. But also, like, I don't like bringing them up because I think they get too much credit for the success of the scene, but refused. But I'll bring up Dennis. One thing that I will never forget is that, like, when you're younger, like 14, 15, like the people that were a few years older than you, they were kind of role models to you.
Yeah, of
Like,
course.
yeah. And I played my first show. I must have been, is it 14 or no, 15 at least, 15, or maybe even 16, with this sucky old school hardcore band. And our first show, I mean, objectively, it wasn't good. But walking off stage, and then Dennis, the guy like the godfather
The
of the scene.
voice of refused.
Yeah,
Yes.
oh, that was incredible. That was amazing. And that kind of like, if you get those boosts, I might have walked. No, but I mean, walking off stage after a show like that might have been the end of my musical career.
Yeah.
Uh, just it didn't work out. I will never do this again. It sucked. But getting boosts, getting that boost and getting the encouragement and all that. I think small things like that might not.
Mhm.
He was just excited for a show, just a bunch of kids. Yeah, cool, great, that was amazing. Then he walked off in life and didn't mean much to him. Might have meant a lot to me. I
Yeah.
think that's something that you need to understand as a person that is some kind of authority figure in any situation. Like, always like positive encouragement, but kids, for example, always it means a lot. Just going to the dentist. You're great. Here's a lollipop or whatever. I mean, the feedback you get is the emotional revenue increases 200%,
Yeah, of
300%.
course.
But not only that, also when I got into music, all these bands like had that they had only started touring Europe, toured US, and so I had it in Louis. Kan du stänga dörren och inte skrika?
Talking about children, guys.
Yeah, the video games. Sorry, no. So you already had that the template to be a musician was
Yeah.
write music, then you release a record, and then you tour.
Mhm.
It was not unreachable goals. You knew that people you met, they have toured the
Mhm.
US, toured with amazing bands. I think like the practice space where we used to practice, like where Cataluna started off, it's a mold infested basement of small convenience store. I think that in that particular, I think there's like 3, 4 practice spaces there, and at least 25 bands have toured the US from that small.
Yeah.
And just getting that mindset that, you know what, we are going to tour, we are going to release a record, and it is not a possible reality. That is what's going to happen. And if
Mhm.
it's nobody going to do it, we're going to do it ourselves. And that is probably the most important, like, one thing that have been the most important teaching from that period is that if nobody, like the basic DIY thing, if nobody's going to do it yourself. If you get a show, play.
If
Because
you
if
can
you're going
pay
to,
it, If you can't pay it, do it yourself. Yeah.
Absolutely. But if you get a show, play.
Yeah.
I mean, that's another thing. Like, I haven't even realized that for a band starting now, like, how do you even get a show? We had a couple of at that time we had a couple of like youth centers that always put out hardcore shows. Like every week there was a show, so getting shows was not a problem. You
Yeah.
every week you went to like the biggest youth center here called the Galaxy. You had like four, 600 people
Yeah.
every single weekend. So when I did my first show, it was in front of hundreds of people. And how many bands that start off can even play in front of 10?
Yeah.
And just having that, the re-encouragement, and having you got to and some creative people inspired another bunch of creative people, and all of a sudden you have a bank of very, very creative people that set up shows, that some did photography and band scenes, and all of a sudden you have a scene where everybody's pushing each other.
Yeah.
And you could go to a show and watch black metal band and a punk band and a pop punk band and a rapper in the same. And if they didn't play the same night, they were playing one night. So you were subjected to a lot of different forms of music. Yeah, we had
Yeah.
a hip hop scene too for a while. Now everything is, well, most of it is dead. I think we have a vibrant kind of a punk scene, but it's not anything close to how it was in the 90s. And on top of that, what you don't know is that spawned a lot of media attention. So like what happened in Umeå was like widely known in nationally. So yeah, but why that was, I mean, there's a lot of people that try to explain, yeah, it's a leftist university, yada. Yeah, but still, like you said, there were other bands that also were very. And when I talk successful, I mean, of course, that they released records and
Yeah.
toured a lot from Skellefteå and Luleå that you already mentioned. Like Fireside is from Luleå, Bridge is from Luleå, the hardcore scene. There's a lot of like the whole like north coast from Umeå on upward spawned a lot of musicians during that time. And I don't really. I mean, there's a lot of. I just met Christopher from Bewitched on the airport. They were playing. He's a few years older than me, but so this like Bewitched, Nagelfar, which is also fairly known. They're still doing it, and they also, they were not a part of the punk scene, but everybody hung out with each other. Everybody knew each other. That's why I met Christopher at the airport, and and they're still doing it. Did 3 shows in South America, I think last weekend.
I mean, think about that, like coming from a fairly small-sized city in Sweden, and then being able to say, like, okay, my band is going for 20 some years, and we still play free shows in South America.
Yeah. It's weird, and it's a town with 100,000 people, and I can't really give you an answer apart from the fact that I, as a political vegan kid, punk, straight edge, all that, hung out with Christopher, which is he was now he was always very nice, but he was playing the part as a black metal dude way more in the 90s than today. Now he's just but I mean, we hung out and we're friends. I think that is probably the closest I can get to an answer than anything.
Well, you've answered my question very nicely, and I have another question. Like, you've spoken about touring, and not only the possibility of touring other continents, but like the fact, okay, we do this, and then we're gonna go on tour. You very early on in the career of Cult of Luna have released on two very, very important, influential labels. You've released on Hydra Head, and a short time later you released on Earache. Was that also something that pushed you? Like, okay, that would be a cool thing to do.
The Hydra Head 7-inch we recorded the same time as the first album.
Mm-hmm.
So we took the very, very small budget that we got from Hydra Head, and we put that into the part of the recording, the album recording too. I don't know. It was. I think it's coincidental, because when we recorded our demo, it was so weird. Our old drummer just he sent me a message yesterday. Like, was it really 26 years ago that Cult of Luna was formed? Like,
yep.
Yeah. Cheers for another 26. No, we recorded the demo, and since a lot of bands that I really loved, I mean, we sent that demo out to, or I sent that demo out to a lot of labels that I like, that released music that I like. Oh, one band that I didn't mention. I'm not sure if you know them. Like, one of the best bands ever when it comes to any heavy music is German, called Acme. You know of them?
Yeah, of course. Bremen hardcore, of course.
Like, no. It's not, of course.
Well, for me, growing up a hardcore kid,
yeah.
I got into metal later than I got into hardcore. So for me,
Yeah.
Acme and the whole Bremen scene was.
I mean, where did it come from? Like, like, did it release that 7-inch in 91? It sounds like nothing else. I mean, where did it get the influence to do it? It's I don't even know. Okay, how to describe it for people that know of it. It's violence in musical form. Before, even like it's heavier than any Floridian death metal at the time.
Yeah,
it's more evil than any Norwegian black metal. It's crazy.
Yeah, and then you meet the guys and you think like two different personalities.
Yeah, I mean that is yeah, I mean that goes for a lot of bands. When we started touring and we never had any band picture, and we rolled up to a venue and people had no idea we were playing the kind of music they were expecting, like 2 meter tall caveman, and we like look like a bunch of teenage Britpop kids. So
Oasis. Yeah. I know.
Yeah, sorry.
But were those two labels in any way something that you looked up to before releasing on Hydra Head, on Earache?
Hydra Head for sure, because there was a lot of bands that I that kind of had influenced me at the start. Earache was more of look. Of course, I mean, I've listened to I mean, everybody knew about Earache, and I don't even have to mention all the bands that I've listened to. I mean, Morbid Angel, At the Gates, and the whole thing. But actually, what happened was that when we released the first album, and we got this 5K review in Kerrang, which we didn't like. Kerrang, for people that don't know, what back in those days, musical magazine was a pretty big deal.
Yes.
Yes, and getting a 5K review in Kerrang was a bigger deal than we thought, or than we
best advertisement one could get. I know. Yeah.
And actually, Dan Tobin, which I still is a good personal friend, got back, emailed us and like, yeah, I really like this album. Nothing more. And we're like, okay, should we ask him? And that's what we got. So there was like we didn't reach out to them, to us.
Yeah.
And so yeah, we did we did a show with the Haunted, I think, and they said, Eric, fuck no. I was like, and they just had the breakdown with at the gates and the whole thing. We didn't have any other option, so we said yes. But there was nothing, and we thought actually, I think it actually. I thought that like I think at the time I rather would have signed to a more like in our musical universe more um fitting label, like a hardcore-ish label, and like getting to this like signed to a big metal label felt like it could have been we could have ended up in the wrong crowd. I don't know if it was a good or bad thing. I think that it helped us a lot. And right now I have a lot of things to say about Eric, but for a very, very long time, well, it doesn't change anything. We have a lot of um, we have a lot to thank Eric for getting us the attention. And I know a lot of people um, have discovered us through a lot of their channels. But I think the most important part was that we started touring a lot with different
Yeah.
bands with us. I mean, I don't know how many times I've heard that. Yeah, I went out to see Bleeding Through, and I saw you guys, and that's how I discovered you. Or I went out to see Poison the Well, and I discovered you. I mean, there's so many. I think that looking back now, it was probably a good move, but at the time, we just signed because we didn't have any other option, to be fair.
Yeah, but we're back with like how important the point in time is, right? Yeah.
Oh, yes,
Something.
yes. You don't even know. Like, we were lucky that we were formed when we were. I mean,
26 years ago.
yeah, and not 10 years later, because
Yeah.
I think one of the advantages that we have had through the years is that we were one of the first band that kind of did the thing that we do now, which there's a lot of bands doing similar stuff.
Yeah.
I think just being the first or one of the first.
In Europe, definitely one of the first. Yes,
Yeah,
definitely.
but it gives you an advantage that um, newer bands really can't get. They don't get anything for free.
Yeah.
But we always have that 26 years of doing the same thing.
I have one last question before we come to the infamous quickfire round at the end.
Yeah.
Is creativity also, or is testing your skills, testing your abilities? Can I really do this? Is that also something that goes into a creative process?
I think it needs to be. We have. I just. Now we're pretty. Now we're pretty confident on what we can do.
Yeah.
But because now we don't care as much. Look, that's another thing. I wouldn't say that we don't care as much, but there's not as much at stake anymore.
Mm.
When we were younger, let's say the first five or six, five albums, crazy to talk in those terms, but the first five albums,
Yeah.
I mean, you realize this, the first five albums, I think we released the first one in 2001. And
Something
this,
like that, yeah.
yeah, 2001, and then you go forward 7 years, and during those 7 years, we released 5 albums. How crazy is it's? I don't even know how we did that. But during that period, it meant everything. That was the only thing I wanted to do, music, and so there were very much at stake every time we released an album, and the anxiety I felt when we like every time when we had the final mix, I was okay, fuck it, let's redo everything. It sucked. But when it comes to your question, on every album, we try to do things like, okay, we got away with things with the last album, but let's see if we can get away with this. This is way like it's beyond our comfort zone. Will we get away with this now? And just try our like maybe not the technical aspect of the whole thing, but more of the creative part of the writing. Like, let's try this. What happens if we write like a country ballad? Will people like totally shun us, or will they enjoy it? And I think it was Thomas, our drummer, that said at some point when we talked about this kind of anxieties that look. On every album, we have released music that we like, and people seem to like it. So if we like this music too, chances that people will like it is pretty big.
Yeah.
So let's feel confident that we enjoy this music. And if we enjoy it, people most likely. And so I think that had grown a lot of confidence up until this point where I honestly don't care if people like it or not. Honestly, it's more now I struggle with myself. Do I like this?
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah. So it's yeah, it's which actually makes it a bit harder. But also, I remember during the first couple of albums, I always wrote parts that I had a problem recording because
Okay.
I wasn't good enough. Like, oh, I did this again. Oh, yeah, I have small, fat fingers. I'm not blessed with long, thin fingers that can make this impossible chord without like. So, yeah.
breaking three fingers at the same time. Yeah, I know what you mean. I know what you mean. So, Johannes, first of all, thanks for these interesting thoughts on this highly difficult topic, I think, because there are so many aspects to it. But nobody leaves a Veil of Sound interview without having to go through the infamous quickfire round at the end. You will always get two alternatives. You have to choose one of them and maybe give a short explanation. And for the first three, I thought about Umea. So I'll give you Abhinanda. Which record would you rather put on right now? The self-titled or the Rumble?
The Rumble probably. I know Jose would probably hate me for that. It's I mean I like both, but I think that the songwriting and the production is way better on the Rumble.
Yeah,
but I like it's hard. To be honest, I would probably like the one that I put on is their most hardcore album, Senseless. That was yeah, of course. It's always different. Well, in their case, not the first EP because that is almost unlistenable, but the Senseless is really good. Yeah.
We'll play the same game with Refuse. Songs to fan the flames of discontent versus the shape of punk to come.
Songs to fan.
Which is very funny because you just did a cover for one of the Shape of Punk's songs.
Yeah,
but I know what you mean.
Let's just say that the shape has grown on me.
Hmm.
Uh, but for a long, long, long time, I had never listened to that record from start to finish. I just couldn't do it.
Mm.
Um, uh, uh, like I understand why it kind of got the attention it got, and it is. I mean, they should all be proud that they did a record that will be. I mean, it is um, a part of musical history. Actually, we
Yeah.
had this. Speaking speaking of um, making short. I came up with this game. What Swedish band would you erase from history? Not because they're bad, but because everyone that like the influence they've had on
Hmm.
other bands uh, have have spawned the pool of worst bands. So,
Hmm.
okay, I'm gonna give this to you. Refused, Meshuggah, and At the Gates. Which one would you erase from history?
I can't say Randy.
No, no, no. I mean, look,
I know what you mean. Let me think. Let me think. That is
no,
a. I love when people put me on the spot.
look,
And
look. So Meshuggah have spawned all these wannabe
I know. I
math
know. I know.
metal
I know.
bands.
I know.
They all suck. Refused. I
I
mean, look at any American pop punk band. At the Gates, this kind of Swedish
I have an
influence.
answer for you. I have an
Okay,
answer for you, and it's very clear for me that it must be Meshuggah. Not because I don't like Meshuggah. I
I
really
love
like
it.
Meshuggah,
Yeah.
but they are just too good to emulate.
Exactly. I think that's the right answer, actually. And there's so many.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So they are too good to emulate, and there's too many people that tried it. I love
Oh,
Refuse. I love Meshuggah. I love At the Gates, but 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 they definitely have spawned a lot of sucky bands.
yeah, and I have to say, like, out of those three, the second would be Refused. Again, too good to emulate. I mean, like the stuff that they did on The Shape of Punk.
Yeah.
That is amazing. I was fortunate to see one of our last shows before the hiatus. And I still remember walking into that hardcore club in Belgium, in the eastern part of Belgium. And there were like a lot of hardcore kids who had not heard The Shape of Punk to come. And they were there to hear stuff from Songs to Fan the Flames. And what is it? What is it with the thing with breaks? Jumper
Break.
breaks? Yeah. So, and they were wanting to listen to that. And fortunately, I had with a few of my friends, we already had heard Shape of Punk. And I can still seeing people standing there in utter disbelief that a hardcore band could do that.
I love that, and I know like David and Christopher and Dennis. They are a few of the more like the you know at sometimes just super creative slash geniuses just meet and you get what you get.
Yes.
There's a lot of bands where you have like the there's chances of history or like the stars line or whatever,
Yeah.
and they
Yeah. Yeah.
find something. Uh, and you definitely have that both with also with Meshuggah. I
Yeah.
mean, nothing but geniuses and like
Yeah.
craftsmanship behind it and all that. Well, yeah,
But
but
again, it's too hard to emulate, like.
yeah, it is, and too many try.
Yeah, I mean, like 100% try and more than 99% fail.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I can't even think of any kind of Meshuggah-ish. I mean, and the thing with Meshuggah is that you definitely can hear that they try to do it, and like I don't like technical metal. I just can't get into it. But the thing with that Meshuggah does is that they make something very, very difficult uh, fa fairly simple.
Yeah.
Because behind all these complicated twists and turns, you always have a steady 4/4 beat. Not always, but most of the time. It's always something simple that get you into the groove. They have a groove when other bands just going, but they always you can always nod your head to Meshuggah.
Yeah, and that is exactly the problem. They make something difficult sound easy.
Yeah.
So let's give you Meshuggah. Destroy, erase, improve versus obscene.
Obscene is actually no. Oh, yeah, that was actually the toughest one. I would say that Destroy, Erase, Improve. With that said, Obscene has like bigger peaks.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I would say Destroy, Erase, Improve is more consistent.
Definitely.
But my favorite Meshuggah album is.
Shall I guess?
Yes.
Catch 33. Tell
No.
me.
I love Chaos Fair because it's like the darkest. Uh, I don't know. There's some atmosphere to it, and I know that it was written very, very quick, very quick. And there's some simplicity and well in there.
In their simplicity.
And some very I don't know, but I have a very soft spot for that album for sure.
I have a few more. Perturbator versus Carpenter Brute.
Perturbator, and for the same reason why I like Chaos Fair, I like Carpenter Brute, but I think James, when you say dark, it has more of a melancholic taste, or a more it's also a bit different when it comes to steady beat.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that's a hard part about talking about art in general, which you asked me to do now, is that some things is like you try to explain why you like a thing, and sometimes it's just like I just like it more.
Yeah,
Okay.
and that is totally fine. That is
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I just
It's
like it more.
it's like why people ask. Like I still to this day, when it comes, for example, to Life of Agony, I still say I like the second album more than the first. I know that the first has the better
Yes,
songs. I know that it's a more concise story, but
but
the second one is just
but here's the thing: how we appreciate art is more on the receiving end, because where you were in life at that time, how like and that cannot be emulated in any way.
no.
It's just how you perceive music, um, and why you have like when you listen to a song from way back, and like it takes you back to that point in
Yeah,
life. It cannot. Of course, I mean, I love getting into nerdy discussion and heated debates about why an album is better than another. But at the end of it, because of like the argument in itself, but in the end of the day, it cannot be argued because
no.
it's
At
like,
the end of the day, we both walk out and we keep our opinions.
of course. And in music and in art, it's okay. Not when it comes to politics, but that's not there. That's another
Well,
topic.
being a politics teacher, I think it's easier, but I know what you mean. Yes.
Oh yeah, I mean it's easier, but it's more wrong.
Yeah, sometimes.
Yeah.
As you are also working in movies, I could not get around. And as we're at the recording of this time, as we're closing in on Halloween, I couldn't get around giving you two, for me, very different horror movies, but two of the ones that I love most for very different reasons. The Exorcist versus The Purge.
But that like that's the acting. asking if you like.
Okay, let's put it. Which one would you rather watch at the moment?
The Exorcist. But like all these old, like it's the same thing like we just talked about where you were at the time, blah blah blah. All these older horror movies, older movies in, I wouldn't say in general, but very common that you need to like. I watched Ben Hur fairly recently.
Mhm.
I don't even know it's from the late
50s.
50s. Yeah. It's an amazing movie, but
It
you
is.
cannot watch it for many reasons. Many,
Yeah.
well, because of yeah, well, shouldn't get into that debate, but you have to be able to watch
One
films.
reason is Charlton Heston.
That's the. I mean, it's about. Okay, well, I'm not even going to get into that, but you need to be able to watch movies and remove yourself from your contemporary art form.
Yeah.
And The Exorcist, I understand that people must have shat their pants
Yeah.
in the day.
Totally.
Yeah. Now I would let my kids watch it. They're totally desensitized to that kind of horror. I don't even think they would register it as I like one example. The one movie that had scarred me was is The Fly from 1980, like the remake.
Cronenberg. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, Jeff Goldblum.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were just scrolling movies yesterday, uh, and I saw that it's on any streaming, and I don't think I could watch it today because it scarred me when I was 6 years old,
Mm.
and I I don't want to rewatch it. Like, no, you would have to have to tie me to a chair to rewatch it.
Which is a movie reference in itself.
Yeah, it is. Many actually. So yeah, no, because I am interested in the craftsmanship of making movies. It all depends, but I mean, The Purge has its, but it's like The Purge. It's such a stupid premise, which makes it genius.
Exactly. And it's and what I think about both movies is, well, first of all, of course, The Exorcist, it has grown on society, it has grown on us. I don't want to say we've grown up with it, but we've heard all the stories about it. We've heard about, Linda Blair and all that stuff. We've heard so
Yeah.
much about the movie, but of course, the legacy of it is much bigger than The Purge. The other for me is that the setting of the Exorcist, is much more timeless, whereas the Purge, to me, is not timeless. The Purge would not work in a setting in Victorian England in the 19th century.
Don't I think you could adapt it? I look in that I don't agree.
Okay.
The thing with The Exorcist is I think what you've seen the legacy of Exorcist. I mean, one of the biggest franchises when it comes to horror movies, The Conjuring, for example, that is the Exorcist. I mean,
Yeah.
they just adapted it, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I think that The Purge. The stupid part, I don't even know how they keep like. Let's just say like, one day everybody can kill everybody. Like I would dismiss that idea directly. It's a stupid idea. It will never work. But it's genius.
Yeah.
And and it says something. One thing that I love about movies like that, and why I have a very soft spot for this kind of a post civilization or the downfall of civilization settings like zombie movies or any like post like apocalyptic stories is that it brings us back. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. It brings us back to the philosophical question of the human nature.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, when I started philosophy, that's it, like that's where you start. What's the nature of the human being? You have different schools, Rousseau, John Locke, Thomas Hobbes, about how the natural state would be. If it would be a war against everybody or a corporation, blah, blah, blah. And it's also how I view humans in real life and how I judge people. And why, for example, one thing that I see as the pinnacle of civilization is the queue system that we value very highly in Sweden, for example, is that you get in line, you have your spot. It's that was separated us from the animals.
Yeah.
But so anyone cutting in line, it's a small thing, but I judge you very harshly because
Yeah.
it's something about how you view yourself in contrast to other people. So cutting in line at the burger joint, the consequences might not be that vast. However, I don't want to get on a deserted island with you when you're only going to think. That's how I look at it. So why I really like these kind of settings is how are you going to react when you know that you will suffer zero consequences?
Yeah.
Like, look, the reason why I don't go out and murder people here is not because I'm going to suffer consequences. It's because I have some form of, first off, I have some sort of conscience, and I also have an idea that the suffering of other people, empathy, sympathy, all these. But how will you react when there's no direct consequences to your actions?
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's a lot of answers to that, and that is something that I really, and I think it's a timeless question, and that's why I think you can actually adapt the purge to a setting in Victorian England or and any place apart from places where you had those like pre-civilization caveman settings or like that. And it says something about society and the individual that is the product of that society. And unfortunately, I think that and I think that the answer to that question when it comes to our civilization is getting more and more bleak for every year. And however, I don't think that I'm not sure that setting would solve any problem.
Yeah, and I'm very sure if we had the purge, we would go as crazy as most people do. 100%.
I mean, you live in Germany. No, look, as much as a pessimistic view I have on humanity, I think killing another human being is something that very few people actually can do, and especially in that kind of brutal way. I can only talk for like my society. I don't think many people would take up on that offer, especially if they have. Like, it's very even when it comes to war, it's very simple to drop a bomb that kills 500 people. I don't even think that there's much like you're detached from what you do. It's way harder to kill somebody with a knife.
Of course, face to face is totally different.
Yeah. I mean,
however, think about it. You don't even have to kill the person. You just have to injure him so much that at some point, when you are not there, you'll die.
Look. I think we, as a civilization, and I'm talking about
We hope, right?
the
Yeah,
civilization.
I hope so
No,
too.
yeah, I don't think. Look, if tomorrow somebody would say, um, yeah, all bets are off. Murder is now legal. I would definitely. I wouldn't go out without arming myself. Uh, but I wouldn't like, and my distrust for people would be bigger. And I would definitely we shouldn't get into that, but I'm a bit of a prepper kind of guy. So
Yeah.
I have stuff. Um, we would manage for a fairly long time. At least my family. But
Which is the only thing that counts in that connection.
yeah, yeah, oh yeah. Well, the thing is, no, it's not the only thing that counts, but that is the first priority.
Yeah.
Yes. And of course, in those settings, I think one prejudice that people have to preppers is that it's all every man slash woman for himself, but it's not about that. I mean, it's all without cooperation, without um, communities getting together, nobody's going to survive. That's the basic.
True.
But yeah, I wouldn't trust people as much, but I think there will be very few people that would actually pick up on it.
I hope you're right, but when I look at some of the idiots here in Germany,
No,
I wouldn't bet my hand on it.
no. I mean, of course, that's the thing. There are people that are, yeah, there will probably be riots and stuff like that. But yeah, and on an individual level, there's all. But that's the thing. We cannot let we cannot let we cannot let people like individual dominate individual crazy people dominate the political discourse.
Definitely shouldn't. Let's talk. I have one more question, and I'm very sure this will be a much more fun question. We've talked about your Refused cover.
Yeah.
If you could tell your bandmates, we'll do a cover by this band because I love them, would you choose That Guy or Unbroken? And which song would it be?
We already covered Unbroken. I would not
Oh
cover
yeah, shit, forgot. Okay, let's say That Guy versus Fugazi. Something totally different.
First off, I don't like covers, which might be weird thing to say.
Yeah, I totally understand that.
But and I think that if you are going to invest the time of making a cover, you should put some effort into making the song your own.
Mhm.
I think for Gaza would be simpler for us to adapt. That
To
guy,
adapt or to turn into a Cult of Luna song?
yeah, to adapt into a Cataluna song. Even though I mean, the difference between us and that guy is smaller than between us and well, smaller relatively. But I think that it would be simpler to do a Fugazi song.
Would you have a song in mind that you would do, if at all?
No, actually, I don't. And to be fair, I'm not a big Fugazi fan.
Yeah,
They
I just
played,
wanted to give you something very, very different.
yeah. They played Umeå a long time ago, and I've never been so bored in my entire life. Yeah, I have. I was not like I love Minor Threat and all that thing, and like everybody was so stoked that Fugazi were going to come and play, and I was like, really cool. 1 hour, 45 minutes later, like, fuck, this is not good. But no, I you really put me on the spot there. No, I don't really have a favorite. So it's not like I am totally unaware of their discography. It's just I don't have a favorite song.
Hmm. It's interesting what you mentioned about being disappointed by shows. I just had the same feeling last week when I watched Ulcerate. Too perfect. You know, sometimes bands can be too perfect live, and that was it
Yeah,
was
maybe.
like dream. It was like Dream Theater on steroids.
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't say that was not my experience when it comes to Pegasi, but yeah.
Yeah, yeah, but sometimes the show doesn't work for people. I totally get that. Totally get that. Thankfully, most people really enjoy Cult of Luna shows, so we can be sure that your creative processes will be hopefully flowing for another 26. That would
Well,
be excellent.
yeah. I mean, then something needs to happen because right now it's very hard. But yeah, that's for another discussion.
We can discuss that whenever we get something new to hear. So
Yeah.
let's cut it to that. Johannes, thanks for your time. Thanks for all the details and for the deep thought. I hope you will enjoy 2025 as much as you've enjoyed, like at least as much as you enjoyed the last year. Hopefully a little bit more. We always hope to see you on European or global stages anywhere. So enjoy the rest of your time. Thanks a lot.
You too. Thank you for having me and putting up with my babbling.
All good. No babbling at all. Thank you.
All right. Cheers.
Cheers.